can.
Now, Allan, it certainly seems there's much more emphasis and attention coming on to some of those industrial wastes. They haven't been in the news so much with farmers perhaps you know, being at the sharp end of the argument, but now people are looking at industrial waste. Do you think this move by Fonterra that's going to cop flack just because of that degree of interest that's now there?
Well, I think part of the problem is that the Manawatu River is the one that's been singled out as one of the most polluted rivers in the world. Whether it is or not, I'm not sure. So the timing of Fonterra's application for a resource consent was tactless. Presumably they had to apply for it, so there was nothing about the timing, but to apply for it for 22 years was certainly very tactless and strategically not a great thing to do. Even if they need it in the short term, as Keith's alluded, these things can't happen immediately. Maybe they do need it for 5 years, for 10 years, but they shouldn't be trying to get it for 22 years, because that sends all the wrong messages.
Yes, and the Greens jump on that pretty rapidly. Yes. All right, now moving on to something very positive for farmers. Gift duty is to go. That's been welcomed by federated farmers. What sort of difference is this really going to make, Keith?
Well, listening to Peter Dunn, they were only making about $1 million. You know, they're getting so little it was costing more than it was. It was a no-brainer to get rid of it, by the sounds of it.
But this has been a bugbear for the Federation for years, hasn't it? So
I'll be very pleased that it's gone through.
What do you think, Allan? It's quite a significant change in terms of farm succession and investment decisions.
Yes, I think it's making it easier to effect what are quite difficult transitional ownership activities within the farming sector. It's a very, very difficult thing. I mean, gift duty was originally, I think, introduced as a sort of buffer to a capital gains tax back 125 years ago, but it was also meant to facilitate the spread of farming succession beyond just leaving it all to the oldest son, which of course was the traditional way in which things were done in the British Empire.
The next topic, kiwi fruit. Zespri is talking about the idea of growing the fruit in Vietnam using local growers and so forth. But this is a suggestion is being mocked by Turners and Growers Chairman Tony Gibbs, who mocks most things that Zespri is trying to do.
Everything's Zespri.
What do you think, Allan? You come from the same sort of area of the country as Tony, don't you?
Yes, I know. I don't have the same income as Tony, and I don't have the same land coverage. But I think it's always naive, really, to you can always take the view that you should never let your expertise go offshore, but I think realistically it's going to be possible for other countries with a climate that's conducive to growing things to produce the same sorts of clones that New Zealand does, and I think it's a hell of a lot better for New Zealand to take control of somebody else's growth rather than letting them pinch your technology and go off and do it themselves.
And further to that is the whole question of having a continuous supply worldwide on the market all year round.
Of good
quality
fruit, which you've got control of in terms of quality.
I have to say, I was recently in China, the original home of the Chinese gooseberry. Some of the fruit you saw there on sale, New Zealanders would not have looked at. Misshapen, very hairy, not good quality at all. But I think another point is Zespri has very successfully managed to integrate with industries in other kiwi fruit growing countries such as Italy, France, Chile. Vietnam would just be another step on the way, wouldn't it?
And also in another area where they're growing fruit in a certain season, not competing with the others.
Right, so...
But I have to say, from a purely personal point of view, I've found for the last month that the standard of New Zealand kiwi fruit in my local supermarket has been absolutely atrocious. They're already soft and bruised, and they should have been taken off the market long ago.
Cattle feed, straight away.
And when we get the Italian kiwi fruit coming in out of season for New Zealand, they're absolutely superb. And then the Zespri ones come back in again, which are like bullets that you could actually kill people with.
Yes.
So I really think the domestic chain is not very well controlled.
Right. Well, just moving on to our last subject, New Zealand farming systems, Uruguay. They've still got big problems from the sounds of it, but Chairman John Parker and some Taranaki farmers are hanging on to their shareholding. Is this a false hope, Allan?
No, I don't think it is. I wrote a column for Farmers Weekly maybe a month ago in which I said that agriculture provided complete lack of opportunity to invest, that there are so few companies that the outside public can invest in, that those that there are should be treasured. And I said that the correct thing to do with the Olam offer was, in fact, to hold on against the future potential that Olam had identified, and that when Olam had actually had a chance to get its systems in place and turn the ship around, that those shares would in fact gain in value, and that those shareholders that hang on and don't sell at 67 or 70 cents would in fact do quite well in the longer term. But you've got to have patience, and that's what New Zealand agriculture completely and utterly lacks. You either get the long-suffering cooperative member of a meat company that doesn't really get any increase in value, or you get the Fonterra shareholders that have to be members of Fonterra to get benefits, or you get people who've invested in companies like AFCO who then get locked in and they can't do a thing about it and they don't get any increase in value, and they think, why the hell was I in here in the first place?
So
somewhere along the line we've got to get used to the fact...
There needs to be a happy medium.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's very important for New Zealand to be involved in South America, because the amount of development taking place in countries like Uruguay, Brazil and so on is so incredible, so much bigger than New Zealand in total area is still to be developed. And if our expertise is in there, we gain from it.
Yes. Thanks, team. After the break, it's you beauty or a bollocking. See who gets what when we return. Welcome back to Straight Talk. Now it's on to you beauty, praise or a bollocking, the opposite. What do you have for us this week, Allan?
Well, I've got a foot firmly in both camps on the same subject that I've been talking about before, which is the Silverfern Farms open letter to Alliance shareholders. You could give them a beauty for being innovative in their approach and deciding that they want to try and engineer some change through democracy in the meat industry, or you could give them a bollocking for being completely cheeky and cute about the way in which they've gone about it. Certainly the Alliance board would give them a bollocking. The question is how many of the Alliance shareholders would also give them a bollocking, or how many would say, you beauty, you've done a really good job. Right.
What about the cost of the exercise? It doesn't come cheap putting full-page ads in publications,
no,
does it?
No, it doesn't, but in the overall scheme of things and the costs that have been involved in all the other forms of presentation and legal and accounting work and issuing of prospectuses and God knows what, it's probably comparatively minor.
Yes. What do you think is likely to happen from here, Keith? You think there'll be further discussion?
Well, there'll certainly be discussion in the Alliance board, you know, among other things, and obviously they'll be listening to their shareholders. I think they all realise that there needs to be change, and how it's going to happen they haven't figured out yet.
What sort of timetable do you think, Allan? They want to get this wrapped up before the end of the year, if anything is going to happen?
Well, the deadline for getting the reports was November the 8th. Right. Getting the responses from farmers was November the 8th, so I suppose that the next week or within the next 10 days they'll sit down and count the responses, and hopefully they'll have more than the fingers of one hand to use to count those responses. But having done that, what possible validity will that have? The Alliance board going to say, well, you've had 500 people saying this would be an extraordinarily good idea, but what about the other 5,000 that haven't responded? There's absolutely no mandate for us to go and do anything. So
would that perhaps prompt the Alliance board to do its own straw poll of shareholders? They
have already said in a letter to their shareholders that they will put this on the agenda at the AGM in early December. So we've got to really, I think we've got another month to wait before we see whether the Alliance shareholders vote to do anything at their AGM.
Right, OK. Well, moving on. Keith, I think you might have a bit of a beauty and a bollocking wrapped into one as well.
I'm talking about the new Auckland Council and the fact that it now covers a lot of rural parts of Auckland, and particularly I was interested to read that they're going to have a liaison committee with farmers. I look on the farming area as the green lung of Auckland in a way, along with the parks, and I think it's very important that that's continued and supported. But having heard recently of farmers who in the past, the way they've been treated by the regional council, when in fact some of them have lived on their land for 150 years and only found out a week before the things were finalised where the conditions and so of their land was being changed by young people in an office in Auckland. I think this new council will have to really liaise well with farmers and explain things long before they get into the situation of making decisions.
What do you think, Allan? You're from one of the areas where in Rodney there were some pretty mixed feelings about coming into the super city.
Yes.
How do you think it's going to go?
Well, the Rodney district, the North Rodney district, was entirely split by the fact that we had the tourist operators on the one hand, and I'm unashamedly one of those who really wanted to be part of the super city because we wanted to be linked to Tourism Auckland. We didn't want to go to be part of Kaipara. And then to the northwest of the Dome Valley, which is also in the super city, that should have gone to Kaipara because the rural population there had nothing in common with Auckland, and they were quite happy to go to Kaipara. So the line was drawn in the wrong place. But we never had that option.
No. But now the
Penny
deed is done.
Penny Webster, as our council representative, is probably the best possible person that we could have chosen for that task. Penny's an ex-Federated Farmers leader. She's an ex-MP. She's been on the council. She's been the mayor of Rodney for the last term and a couple of terms. So I think Penny will do a good job. She will represent us, and I will have the opportunity to talk to her at our Thursday evening drinking group.
There you go. Our hopes are with her. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks to my guests, meat industry commentator Allan Barber and former Federated Farmers Vice President Keith Hanning. And thanks to you for watching. Please email your comments to country99tv.co.nz. Check out my blog there, and we'll see you next time.